y'all, so I'm driving. So excuse the rattling in the back, but I'm making a long drive, so I just had something on my mind, and I just want to talk about it while I was driving. So what I would like to say is, please realize when you're not a dude's type. Like, as women, we have to realize and understand when we are not someone's type, because we can spend so much time in a relationship where we don't even feel attractive, and then at the end of it you realize that you are never their type. For example, me, as you know, I am dealing with a breakup. So, and I just realized, like, dude, I was never your type, even though we were together for 7 years. I was never his type. And me, I kind of always, so I've never dated outside my race. So I've always dated black guys that they would always tell me, I don't really like black girls, but you're kind of different, whatever. I always heard that from the guys that I talked to, right? And it was funny, that pattern, because in all of those relationships, like, I kind of felt it was always like a high and a low. Like, it made me feel good and like, okay, like that kind of side eye type of thing. But what I noticed about these guys is that, they never treated me. They treated me good enough to where I talked to them, but they never treated me like a princess. They never treated me, above just, the basic things that guys do when they like you or whatever. So yeah, with my ex, he did cheat on me a few times, and I did, stupidly continue to go back there. But what I noticed with the girls that he liked, they were always light-skinned or like mixed girls. I always noticed that, and I would always ask him, like, do you really like me? Because none of the girls that I see that you like, or that you follow on Instagram or anything, none of them look like me. They might be black, but they're brown skin. And me, I'm not super dark skinned. Not to say that being dark skinned is a problem, but I'm not super dark skinned, but I'm also not brown. So it was always that question for me, like, do you really like me? Even celebrities that I would ask him about, he would always say, like, oh, Ice Spice, India Love, like, those type of girls. And one thing about me, I have smaller, like, in school I would always be called like Blasian and Chinese eyes, and people would always ask me, like, oh, are you mixed with something? Clearly I'm black because my skin tone, but my eyes made me look kind of just Chinese a little bit. So that's what I would always get from people. So whenever he would show me or tell me about the girls that he actually did find attractive, like India Love and stuff like that, like, I would always kind of subconsciously compare myself, and I'd be like, okay, well, I kind of do look like her because my eyes, like, so I can see why, you kind of, would like me, why you would find me attractive. But when you only have certain features that a guy likes, that's really it's not enough when they prefer a whole entire different phenotype than what you have, and it's not worth your time to be with a guy that wouldn't choose you in all different changes to life, because we all go through different phases in life. We have good phases, down phases, bad phases. There's times where, you're going through dealing with a job loss, or, especially when you're young, when you're in your 20s, like me. There's all different phases that you're going to go through. And it was always, once I started getting into like the YouTube conversations and, listening to what they had to say, like I kind of started noticing those things in my relationship. Like, wow, if you were, financially stable and, just the person that like you thought that you were going to be all of your life, like, would you really still choose me? I always had those thoughts, and it was always like an underlying no. Like, I don't think that you would choose me. I just always kind of feel like, okay, you're choosing me for now, and in a relationship, you never want to feel like, okay, he's just with me because he can't really get nobody else, and so it's always important to, whenever you're talking to a guy, ask him, what kind of girls he prefers. Whenever I'm hanging out with guys, like if we're watching a movie or, just something, I'm always like, which one do you think is the prettiest? Which one do you find the most attractive? And it's not like if they say, oh, the light-skinned one is the best looking one. It's not that if they say that it's the end of the world, but it's just certain things that you have to notice in what they're saying. You always have to read between the lines of what a guy is saying. If you ask him, oh, who's your celebrity crush, and they say like someone that looks nothing like you, that's a prime indicator that they don't really like you. They're kind of just settling for you because of, maybe you benefit them in a way. They're probably just settling. I had this one dude that I had talked to. We're actually still cool. He was so cool. He was so nice. He pursued me and everything like that. But me being young, I didn't really like him because I always just kind of feel like, okay, you're thirsty. But back then, I didn't realize that, a dude should be kind of a little bit thirsty over you. You want to date the one that you know likes you, right? And I remember hanging out with him, and I asked him, so who is one of your celebrity crushes? He said Coco Jones. I said, wow. Like Coco Jones? Like, because no other black dude that I had ever talked to had ever just automatically said that a dark-skinned black girl was their celebrity crush. And now that I look back on it, it just makes so much sense that Coco Jones was his, preference and his celebrity crush, because he actually liked black women. Like, he actually liked, what I look like, and the treatment it was different. Like, he actually, like I said, he was actually good to me while we did, talk. But again, I just wasn't, interested in him. But I think it's so important that you ask, what's your preference? What, like, do you prefer to date black girls? Like, if he prefers a light skin or a mixed girl and you are brown or dark skin, like, you might want to do some reevaluation, because you won't be treated how you are supposed to be treated. Okay, when a guy is kind of settling for you in a way, like, they're not gonna treat you like you are the apple of their eye, because it's just like, okay, like, I just got this is temporary, like, it's just like, let's see, it's just like when, say, you're going out to the club or whatever, and you don't have, like, maybe you have like some super cute high heels that you want to wear to the club, right? But you know that high heel shoes hurt your feet. You know that they hurt your feet. So instead of walking around, like, getting in the car with your heels, or, maybe you go out to eat before, or just anything, you have those backup shoes that you're like, okay, these are the shoes that I'm gonna wear for now, because I don't want anybody to see them, or they're comfortable. But once I get to the club, once I get where I'm going, these shoes are coming off. I'm putting on these heels. So, and again, most of the time, those comfortable shoes, you don't really care about getting those shoes dirty, or, just anything. Like, you don't care if they have holes, or just whatever is with the shoes. Like, you don't really care as much as you care about keeping your high heels clean while you go out and stuff like that. So, it's the same kind of example for a guy. If they're settling for you, they kind of just already have that attitude. And I mean, it's so easy to pick up on things like that when you are aware of, how someone treats you when they actually like you, and I feel like, as black women, sometimes, well, as women in general, sometimes I don't want to say that we take what we can get, but once we start liking someone, we just kind of get blind a little bit. And you can't be blind to how a dude is treating you in a way, because if he's already kind of lukewarm attracted to you, there's really not much that you're going to be able to do to change that attraction. Certain days, you might can do your makeup a different way, or do your hair a different way, and all of that. But at the end of the day, what you naturally are, how you naturally are, like, that's what a guy, that's when you should feel, you're most attractive. Like, you shouldn't have to put on, like, a wig that's down to your butt for your man to, like, really be attracted to you. Like, your man should be attracted to you with your natural hair, and whether that is short 4C hair, you should feel confident and beautiful around your man, and again, if you kind of just get the feeling like, oh, he doesn't really like how I look right now, and you're completely natural, or just stuff like that, then yeah, that's something to give the side eye to, and that is a valid reason to walk away from a relationship. Like, a guy's preference is a valid reason to walk away from a relationship, because you will forever just be treated like they settled, and you will feel that, and it will mess with your self-esteem. Like, it will. There's really no other ways to kind of say it, because it will eventually, mess with you. Like, again, with my ex, like, all of his Instagram, all of the, the IG models and stuff like that he followed, none of them were dark skinned. Like maybe it would be one, I remember him saying that he thought that Cash Doll was pretty, right? But, Cash Doll, I'm not going to say Cash Doll isn't exotical, but, Cash Doll, she looks exotic when she has on, when she's at her best. We don't really see Cash Doll in the natural kind of way. And hold on, guys. So sorry, guys. I was driving to meet my grandma, and I finally pulled up, so I had to kind of get off the recording super quick, but I wasn't done with my thoughts. So now I'm on the way back home, so I can finish this video. But yeah, as I was saying about Cash Doll, so that's one person that one dark-skinned girl that my ex did say was attractive. But again, we have to look at Cash Doll, you know what I mean? And even though we can tell that Cash Doll is unambiguously black, right? We can look at her and tell she's a black woman. But it's the conversation about her features. She has, kind of the smaller-ish, pointier features than, most of us in the unambiguous community have. So even though he did say Cash Doll, it's still kind of like, okay, but, that's not the same thing, And really, when he told me that he didn't find Gabrielle Union attractive, like, I should have left him, because Gabrielle Union is an unambiguous black woman, right? She has not the widest features, but her features, she's unambiguously black. Like, she doesn't look like an average black woman, but she is a beautiful black woman that has black features, right? And he would always say, it's something about her, she's not, all that. I don't think she's that cute, whatever. And I'm like, Gabrielle Union? Like, are you serious? So it's just little things like that we have to pay attention to, because again, we'll just be setting ourselves up for, just lukewarm attraction. And we all deserve to be loved out loud, unconditionally, and not just out loud, but loud. We don't deserve to just be with a guy because he'll be with us. If you don't think that your guy would be with you, whether he was broke or rich, or in a bad situation, not in a bad situation, whenever he gets to his fullest potential, if he's working on that, if you don't feel like you're the woman that he would still be with whenever he reaches his full potential and where he wants to go in life, then that relationship is a waste of your time. Because once he gets to that point, he will most likely get his preference, And even with my ex again, like, it was this one girl, okay, and she was Hispanic, okay. So the girl, they had worked together, and I had just found out some things, like he was hanging out with her, all of that. He downplayed it, obviously, during the time, and I believed him during the time, but looking back at the situation, I'm kind of like, okay, it was more going on there that I didn't get to the bottom to, and so I remember he had unfollowed her once everything blowed up and came to the surface. They had unfollowed each other, all that, okay. But she wasn't an ugly girl. She was not ugly at all. She was a Latina. She was Hispanic, like I said. And she was a pretty girl. So I'm like, okay, maybe he did actually, find her, absolutely attractive because, like I said, she was not an ugly girl. And so they had completely stopped talking for what I'm aware of, right? Okay, boom. Fast forward. It was maybe like a year or two later of our relationship. Fast forward, I had seen that they were following each other again. And I'm like, okay, what is this about? So, I confronted him about it. And, he goes to tell me, he's like, oh, she has a boyfriend now, blah, blah, blah. She has a boyfriend. Her boyfriend plays basketball. And he was telling me how she had messaged him to try to hang out with him again, right? And his explanation was, I don't know why she's trying to hang out with me. I'm broke. I don't have no money like her boyfriend has. And I'm like, And that stuck with me that he said that because I'm like, okay, so if you did have money or, if you weren't in your current situation, so you would go and talk to her just because you don't have no money right now. That's why you're not talking to her, because he knew, he knew that he could not get his preference at the time. He could not get her with not having, that same job that they had both worked at. I think during the time he was actually unemployed because he had quit that job. I think. But yeah, he didn't have no money at the time, and that's what he said. And that again, that stuck with me because I'm like, okay, it made me just think back to me, like, okay, so why do you? It's like, why do you want to be with me then if you're broke and nobody else is gonna want you? And guys, they don't even look at like love like that. Okay, something that I've realized about guys, like they actually, if you are with them whenever they are down and struggling and all of that, they actually kind of just look at you like you're disgusting. Okay, they really look at you as if you cannot get anybody else. They don't look at, oh, I've been with you for 5 years, so this is why I'm actually in this relationship, because I actually love you. Like, they don't look at it that way. They're like, okay, she can't get anybody else, so she with me. And I can't get anybody else right now, so I'm with her, And it's always that vibe, and you can always tell. And I just suggest that if you want to be happy and fulfilled and, feel beautiful as you are, then these are things that you have to notice early on whenever whenever y'all either first get into a relationship, first meet, everything like that, okay? You have to notice these things because, again, just letting things kind of blow over, like those things will come back to the surface. Things like that, especially, they will come to the surface. Everything that you blow over at the beginning of a relationship, they come back. They do. Everything that I did not like about my ex, I knew that I did not like those things about him, and I just kind of ignored it. Like, I ignored it because, for one, I thought that maybe he would change, doing things, or his opinion on things, or, whatever. But when someone shows you who they are, you have to believe it. As hard as it is to do that, because you want to be optimistic about, any relationship that you're in. But you can't always do that, and doing that will only rob you of yourself at the end of the day. You only take away from yourself when you are talking to a guy and you know that you are not his preference. Okay, that will eat at your, it will eat away at your self-esteem. Because then, when a girl walks by, like a light-skinned girl or a mixed girl, then it's like you're going to be in your head because you're going to be like, okay, wow, what is he thinking? Does he want to talk to her? And then it's like you then feel insecure.
In 2 miles, take the exit to merge onto I-85 South.
You then start to feel insecure about... Okay, so you then start to feel insecure about yourself because you know that your man has a preference and you're not his fucking preference. So none of that is even worth it. It's not. No amount of love that you give a guy will change his preference. Nothing that you do for him will change his preference. If you're not his preference, you will know. Okay? You will know. And it is really, truly not a good feeling at all. So, again, whenever you recognize what his preference actually is and you realize that you are not that, leave. Always.